Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This one is going to be the actual review of the True PX5 pads. I already did an out of the box video. I call it spec check now, just going over the build specs of it. So if you're really interested in specifically that, go watch that video. This one is just going to be more my experience using it, what I thought after using it. And then I'm adding a little something at the end of the video just because I have both pads right now with me, so figured I might as well. I'm going to do like a direct comparison from the True PX5 pads to the CCM Eflex 7 pad. Just going to talk about what each pad, maybe if one does something better than the other, if one is better for a certain kind of goalie, just maybe overall what I think is a better kind of overall pad. I just think it's an interesting juxtaposition, the two pads, just because at one point Lefebvre, who is designing True now, used to design for CCM. They had a split, and so now this is multiple generations of pad later, and these are the two models that compete with each other. I think it's just interesting to take a look at the two. So it's going to make this video a little long. I mean, all my videos are kind of long, but it's going to make this video a little longer with that addition at the end, but I'll put like a timestamp. So if you're only interested in that, you can jump to that. If you don't want to watch that part, you don't have to, just stop watching after the review. But I have both pads, so I just figured might as well do that. But yeah, so let's jump into the review of the True PX5 Catalyst leg pad. So first off, congratulations, True. It only took your fourth try, but you finally got it right. Well, not the pad as a whole, but one specific thing. And I guess, admitting you're wrong is the first step. But yeah, so they changed their sliding surface material with the PX5 to Diamond Glide is what they're calling it. Before that, they had Quick Glide, it was called. I always get that confused with Vaughn's Quick Slide, because it kind of sounds so similar. But yeah, Quick Glide is what they're using that from the 12.1, 12.2, PX3, and then they just changed it to the Diamond Glide with the PX5. So three generations of this pad had the Diamond Glide. You would think it must have been good. They kept using it. No, not at all. And if you go back and watch, I reviewed all those pads. If you go back and watch, well, the 12.2 I had didn't have, they just had Gen Pro on it. But my 12.1 and my PX3 had the Diamond Glide. Terrible. Ruined the pad for me. And the thing is, like, the PX3 isn't really much different than this pad. And yet, my experience was totally different, pretty much based on the sliding material, the new sliding material being better. It's crazy to me that they stuck with it for so long when they knew very well it was bad. Why do I say they knew very well? I mean, for one thing, you could see any message board and goalie group, social media, whatever, people were always complaining about it, number one. Number two, if you looked at or got any pro return pads, I mean, I'm not going to say completely none, zero. I mean, there might be some guys that use it. For the most part, none of the pros were using that. They were just using Gen Pro, or they were using, really, in my opinion, at that time, their best sliding material was their weave. So what does that tell you? Diamond Glide sucked. I mean, sorry, not the Diamond Glide. The Quick Glide sucked. I don't know if they were just stubborn. They didn't want to admit they had come out with something bad. And then the craziest part was, like, okay, even if you just want to have that material, like, have it as an option for custom. But no, they forced it at the stock level, which, for most beer league guy, non-pro type goalies, most guys are getting stock stuff. They're not ordering custom. So yeah, if you ever ordered custom, you could have got the weave, like I said at the time, which was the best sliding material. But it just sucks that they stuck their custom pads with the Quick Glide. That was terrible. And so, yeah, like I said this in my review of the PX3, that I felt like it really wasn't a fair review, just because that alone, like, ruined my experience. And I'm very happy to report that the Diamond Glide material on this now is very good. it's really like right up there with, I've been saying for a while, my Vaughn's quick slide material is the best. It probably still is the best, but man, this is like right there with it. I was thrilled with the sliding on this. And you know, I had heard a lot of good things before I used this, and that was one of the main reasons I wanted to try this pad, is really the Diamond Glide, and it didn't disappoint. So, you know, I have to hand it to True. You did come out with something really good. I just don't understand why it took this long, but yeah, you finally, now you have a sliding surface that not only competes with just about anything else, but is probably as good or better than anything else. Okay, let's put it that way. I mean, I was super impressed with it. And that made my experience with these pads so much better than the PX3. And like I said, it's not that the design of the pad, other than the sliding material, was so different that it should have been that night and day, but it was for me because of the Diamond Glide. And we'll get back to the Diamond Glide and the sliding, getting into the review of that. But the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, just to get out of the way, because it's kind of a small thing and it's something that can be changed easily, is the toe ties. And again, I was pleasantly surprised with these toe ties. It's very rare that I don't end up putting my Kova toe ties on a pad that I'm trying, but I didn't feel the need to. These were fine. Now, it's not to say that I would use these over my Kovas on other pads or whatever, but I just didn't feel the need to switch it out on this. I tried it, and from the get-go, it worked fine for me. Now, I did move it. This is the inner edge of the pad, so it gives you the options of where you can attach it. I did attach it closer to the inner side, so that does give you a little more leeway for your toe or your skate to go towards the ice. But even besides that, worked fine for me. I had no issues with it. And you know, the funny thing is, there's really no give to it. It's all skate lace, and then the only part that has it's like a bungee part is this end piece, but this doesn't even come into play. And really, okay, to say one kind of negative thing about this though, I would say it's a little too long. I don't need it to be this long. So because it's so long, I had to wrap it around my skate more than I normally do, or I've had to do with other toe ties. And so that means that by the time this part comes into play and I attach it to each other, it's the non-flexible skate lace part is wrapped around my skate so much that this doesn't come into play at all. So it just acted like basically straight up skate lace. So it's a very simple design, really. And then the other thing that I was kind of wondering about before I even tried it, you can't adjust this length. This is the length they gives you. I mean, okay, I guess technically maybe you could push this out, fool around with it, something on that end to shorten it. But this is probably really the only one I can think of that there's really no easy way to adjust the length of this. But I don't know if they did it through testing or how they figured out this length, but this really is the perfect length anyway. I had no desire to change the length. Worked fine. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't have to put my Kovas on here. You know, so I don't think most people would have an issue using these. I think these are pretty solid. I mean, it's basic. Like I said, it basically ends up being skate lace, but yeah, worked fine for me. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way because it's a minor thing, but it's something that stood out to me just because I usually never use the toe ties that come with these pads. I always use Kova. All right, so getting back to the meat and potatoes of this pad. For the kind of pad it is, and yeah, okay, it is, they're hybrid pads, so yes, I guess if I'm looking at True, that is the pad for me. In reality, something this stiff is not for me, but that's just the way the industry is. There's really, other than going custom, there's nothing that's legitimately the flex level that I need for myself in my game. But considering how stiff this pad is, this is probably, it's not the most comfortable pad overall, but it's the most comfortable of anything that has this level of stiffness to it. Okay, let's put it that way. Yes, there is a break the brake barely comes into play because, and I talked about this in the out of the box, the spec check, it only flexes in so much as these two pieces meet and then they catch on each other and doesn't flex anymore. And even then, there's not much to make it flex because, okay, this is the brake. What is above the brake that's pulling it in? It's only this elastic knee strap, which is elastic. So that gives more than it really pulls this in that much. You know, a strap, top strap or whatever up here would be something that pulls it in. But like I said, with this level of, I mean, what is this? Not even like maybe half an inch, if that, of room for it to move, it wouldn't even matter anyway. So yeah, it has a brake, but there's really, for all intents and purposes, there's no flex to this. And at the top, there is really no flex to this at all. But considering all that, the pad was super comfortable on my leg. I would say 95% of what I had to do playing, how I play, whatever, worked fine with this pad. There was only very few instances, like I said, maybe a 5%, whatever, that I would think to myself at times, yeah, it's not comfortable to do because of the stiffness of this pad. Like, for instance, my custom Vons would have been better for me at that point. But it, like I said, super limited points that happened. And it was just stuff that involves, it was really anything involving me having to, I don't know, like how to explain it. It's kind of hard. Like crouch down super low, maybe like to do a VH move, or if I'm really leaning hard into a RVH, just something where it puts a little more torque on the pad and my leg is super flexed because of whatever reason. That was the only time that the stiffness of the pad kind of stood out to me. But other than that, just the way they designed this pad, it's the most, like I said, the most comfortable for this level of stiffness that I've ever tried personally. So, you know, you're getting all the benefits of a stiffer type pad, but it's just a lot more comfortable. And like, even if you're a guy that likes stiff pads anyway, like why would you say no to having something be a little more comfortable, right? So like, even so, like, yeah, I might be a bit of an outlier as far as what I like in a pad, and also because I'm older, but just in general, like, why wouldn't someone like a pad that's more comfortable than a lot of other pads? So yeah, the comfort level of these pads was awesome. You know, they felt light on my leg. And so like, even before I'm getting to the sliding or any down movement, like, you know, doing any kind of shuffling around on my feet, you know, lateral shuffling, any kind of pushes, just any movement on my feet, beautiful. Now, to be fair, I did think pretty much the same thing with the PX3s, because of course, when you're on your feet, the sliding surface doesn't come into effect. And I did say that as something positive about the PX3s, that they were pretty comfortable when I was standing up and doing any kind of movement standing up. And I also said that other than the sliding surface, the design of this pad is very similar to PX3. I would say the only thing, you know, I don't have the PX3 with me right now, and it's been a while since I did review those pads. I want to say though that they thinned it out a little bit more than the PX3. Not that the PX3 wasn't thin already, but I think they did thin it out a little bit. And especially, I think the boot, if I recall, I think this boot's a little thinner and a little more flexible, which also is a positive for me. I'll get into the boot a little more later. So there are slightly different build aspects to it than the PX3. But yeah, so that continuation of the comfort of any kind of movement on your feet was good. And a big part of that, and again, this isn't new with this, it was on the PX3s as well. Like I said, maybe just a little thinner on this, but this super thin thigh rise, and like the way they kind of cut it, have like a little notch cut out, whatever you want to call it, at the top of it to really make it thin, makes any kind of integration between the two pads seamless. So when you're in a stance and your stance is going to involve the two thigh rises kind of interacting, going down in the butterfly, doing it. Like there was not one instance where I felt any kind of interference with the thigh rise. And that's kind of rare with the stiffer pads because a lot of times that can happen. However, I will say now with everybody's going thinner and thinner with the thigh rises, and the more thin the thigh rises have gotten, the less that is a thing. So there's that. But yeah, just to say, like with this pad, great feeling on the leg, great thigh rise interaction. And I was just able to move on my feet as good as any other pad. I mean, just specifically talking about on the feet, yeah, like that, as comfortable, as good as anything else I've ever used. So let's talk about once you go down the butterfly, any kind of move that. Well, first, before I talk about the movement, the seal on this is really good. Now, why is that? Anytime you have a pad that's stiff, that's going to help seal. Not only that though, but like, it's not just stiff in general, the body of the pad. This landing area has a very specific shape and edges that like keep that shape. Like there's other, and I'll show you when I do the comparison with the Eflex 7, for instance. That has a little more of a rounded landing sliding surface. This is like, that's not a square technically, but you know what I mean, like a square, rectangle, whatever. Like it has those hard defined edges, and it's hard. Okay, so that not only is that helping sliding, that's helping sealing the ice. I mean, there's nothing squishing, moving that could get kind of misshapen or open a hole or whatever. Complete seal along the ice when you're going down, and also like, you know, at times when you do movements in the RVH or something like that, that can open up, make the pad kind of lift off the ice or open up holes. Now, look, I don't think there's any pad that's going to not do that at all, because just your forces, your weight on the pad, if you're doing certain movements, is going to kind of twist it a little bit, maybe cause it to lift up a little bit. But this probably does about as good a job as any pad at sealing the ice and not having that happen as you're moving around or shifting your weight within the pad. So like that was excellent, the seal to the ice. And then moving on from that, again, let's talk about the big headline with these pads, the Diamond Glide. Just no issue sliding. Didn't matter what ice I was on. I mean, none of the ice is really that great down here in South Florida. Obviously some better than others, but like the rink I normally play at most probably has the worst ice down here, and didn't matter. These slid great. Was not affected by bad ice conditions. Effortless sliding. I was able to do any kind of movement that I wanted to, and if you've watched me play before, if you've seen my other videos, you know, I'm not like a super textbook goalie. Yes, I can do that sometimes when everything's going like according to plan in front of me. Sometimes I can get scrambly. I do, start doing like older style goaltending, however you want to call it. And this didn't inhibit me from that, even though it is a stiffer pad. It's not really meant for that. It's a very modern pad. But, a lot of these movements I do, and then like scramble plays, like I said, like if I got caught maybe out of the net and I had to scramble and slide back, no issues. I mean, do post integration, post to post, sliding post to post integration, VH, RVH, recovering off the post, jumping up to, if a pass comes out high and you have to get out of your post integration and cut down the angle a little bit. All that with no issue. The pad didn't inhibit me, nothing like that. Super comfortable doing all that. Yeah, and then just also making the saves, like having a slide, doing some kind of like backdoor save. Or also, here's another one too, that sometimes with these stiffer pads I find to be an issue. So it's like those times where, okay, you drop to make a save and maybe it's a deflection, or maybe you make that first save, but then the rebound is in a bad spot and you got to make a really quick adjustment, really quick recovery from the down position. Like with my Vaughn, my custom Vaughns, that's one of the main reasons I love those, is because it doesn't restrict me at all. I can make any split second change, a little movement, whatever with it. But with the stiffer pads, sometimes I feel inhibited by the pad, by the stiffness. It's not too comfortable on my leg, and it'll be like I'll go down and I'm almost kind of not stuck, but it's not as so easy for me to make a last minute adjustment, do a last minute recovery, split second recovery, whatever you want to call it. But with these, that wasn't an issue. I was able to do that. Did not feel this inhibited me in that aspect at all. So yeah, and I will say though, I mean, yeah, I guess it's going to sound like a negative when I say this, but I guess you can kind of twist it to be a positive. So like I said, these feel, they're nice and thin. They felt light on my leg. So that sounds like a positive, right? I mean, it is a positive. Something I kind of noticed, not a lot, but there were a couple instances here and there that I noticed. I didn't have a feel for the puck when it hit off my leg pads as good as some other pads I've used. Specifically, again, I'll always compare things to my Vaughns. I mean, that's also going to be because of the stiffness of the pad. It's just like, I guess you'd call it like the feedback you get of the puck off the pad. There were a few times where I didn't even realize if I had made the save or not. I was a little unsure of myself. But yet it always ended up being that I did make the save, but it was like kind of, whoa, that was close, right? Like I really wasn't sure about that one. And also I didn't quite know maybe where the rebound went. Again, I want to stress, this was not something all the time, like a constant thing, but there were some instances where that happened, whereas that never happens with my Vaughn. Again, I'm thinking it has to do with the stiffness of the pad. Also, maybe whenever you have a pad that's stiff like this, and it's just this kind of construction, it's always going to feel more like something on your leg as opposed to organically part of your leg. I've talked about this in past videos if you haven't heard me. Just what I mean by that is, like, again, comparing it to my Vaughn. My Vaughns, because of how flexible they are, the type of pad they are, they have more of a feeling like it's part of your leg. Even especially more so past models of the Vaughns. They're a little bit getting away more from that now that they're becoming more modern with their design. But that was always been like a staple of the Vaughn Velocity pad. It feels like it's part of your leg as opposed to something strapped on your leg. It's just the nature of this design of a pad. This is going to feel more like something strapped on your leg, so you don't have that organic feeling. You lose a little bit of that feedback. Again, I want to stress, very few times, but it's just something I did want to say because it is something I noticed that, that suffers a little bit, okay? Just throwing it out there that is something I did notice. But again, you want to spin that as a positive way. The pad's super light. If you like stiff pads, it's stiff. It's all going along with those aspects of the pad. The boot on this, I really liked. 2 reasons: because of how thin it is, and the flexibility was pretty good. Not the absolute most flexible boot I've ever had, but up there, pretty damn flexible. I feel like this is probably my favorite boot I've ever had on a True, to be honest. And that's one of the things that will make a stiffer pad usable for me, is at least if the boot is flexible. That helps a lot for me. I do like deep crouches a lot. And it just makes, like, again, going back to the RVH type stuff or post integration, helps with all that stuff, makes that feel more comfortable. So yeah, I really like the boot on this pad. And when I went over the specs of these, Not that it's different than just about any other pad out there, but no boot channel. Just about every pad now doesn't have a boot channel anymore. That being said, though, and I've been asked this by people like, oh, does that make the pad sit higher? Like in general, yes, that's the idea of not having a boot channel makes the pad sit higher. However, I will say, and I'm guessing it's because of the thinner boot on this, I didn't think it changed the size from past True pads. I've been going with 33 and True ever since the 12.1, and these don't fit any bigger to me. If anything, these might even fit a hair, I mean, I'm talking a hair, smaller than like the PX3s. Again, just because of that thinner boot. And I say that because like when I did use the PX3s, because that stock True only offers +2 on the thigh rise. And when I used the PX3s, I thought that the thigh rise was a little much for me. With these, that thought never entered my mind that the thigh rise was too much. And the only reason I can think about that is, again, because the pad sits a hair lower on my leg, on the skate on the leg than the PX3 because of that thinner boot. But it's definitely not because of the leg channel, the boot channel, because there is no boot channel. All that to come back and say, if you've been using a certain size in True for their past models, I would say you're safe to use the same size with these. I don't think this changes the size in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's how, talking about how it fit on my leg, sizing wise. Something else that I kind of wasn't expecting, and the thing is, it's not something I care about a lot, but I know a lot of you guys do, and a lot of people in general, a lot of goalies in general do. I wasn't expecting the rebounds that I was getting off of these. These were, I mean, not quite Bauer, but that's probably the closest I've experienced to a Bauer type of rebound other than Bauer. I was pretty surprised. I mean, it was just, let's put it this way, like it was enough that I noticed it. It's something that I'm telling you because I noticed it and I was like, oh, wow. The rebounds flew off this thing pretty damn good. So if you're a guy that really cares about trying to kick those rebounds out, but yet maybe you just don't want to use Bauer, this does it in spades. So very good with the rebounds on these as far as how far it kicks them out. And even on shots that maybe weren't even like that crazy hard. Because like, yeah, any pad is going to kick out a rebound on a blast of a shot, a laser, right? But even just like sort of like average type shots with these, it was really kicking the rebounds out to the corners, and yeah, just, you know, enough to make me say something and notice it. So, I mean, good. And that's something I hadn't noticed in past True pads. So, not sure if, you know, I have no way of seeing the internals in this. But if they change something with that or whatever, but yeah, the rebounds are pretty damn good with these. So this is not new at all with this, but I'll still mention it anyway. The FRS strapping system on the calf, they've been doing that since the 12.2. So it's been on the 12.2, the PX3, and now the PX5. I liked it ever since when I used the 12.2. That was probably my favorite thing about the 12.2 pads, was I thought this was a really good strapping system. I mean, it's been so successful and good that other companies have tried to copy it to not great success, in my opinion. There is no substitute. If you like this FRS system, there's like no other pad trying to copy it really excels at it. So yeah, it gives a way to attach it to your leg that is comfortable and just works well. Rotation is great. You know, normally I'm not a guy that likes this much material wrapped around my leg. For instance, with my Vaughn pads, I just have a professor strap, and then I have the outer strap that just holds everything in, and that's it. But for whatever rhyme or reason, this just works. It doesn't feel uncomfortable, even though I would think it would if I didn't know any better. And it just makes the pad perform great the way it's supposed to. The knee landing, to me, it's very much, the same style knee wing, knee landing as in past True pads. It does not integrate into the body of the pad, but for something that doesn't integrate into the body of the pad, it's still, fairly stiff. Yes, it has some give. I think, let's put it this way. I think the stiffness level of this is fine. I really don't think this pad needs a stiffer knee block or knee landing. So like, I'm happy with all that. The Sure grip here, while I usually don't, if I had given the choice, I'm wearing custom, I don't like to order any kind of like a Sure grip or any tacky material on this, but it wasn't an issue. Pad worked fine for me the way it is with this Sure grip. And then, look, it's not that it's such a long-term review. This was a review done over a couple months, skating, 3 times a week. But, with True, you always know you're getting the quality aspect is there, specifically when I'm talking about the North American made stuff. So there's not a stitch out of place, no quality issues with this at all. That's to be expected with True. So you're always getting that whenever you get a True pad. Again, specifically talking about the North American pro level stuff. So, trying to think if there's anything else I haven't talked about. Talked about the size, comfort, fit on my legs, sliding. Something else I'll talk about is, and look, it's to be expected. It's not a surprise to me because of the stiffness of it, and there's nothing bringing it in and all that stuff that I've already gone over. No big surprise, but me with a narrow butterfly, yeah, the thigh rise for the most part, doesn't completely touch each other and seal off the 5-hole that way. I never rely on that anyway. I'm still old school where I squeeze my knees together on a 5-hole shot. So, I definitely experienced 5-hole shots where I made the save actually with my knee pad instead of the pad itself. But overall, it just, like I said, for me, it was an issue. If you're somebody that does rely on the thigh rise, but yet you have a narrow butterfly, that kind of seems like an oxymoron. I guess that could be an issue for you. But yeah, this is not a pad. I would say definitely is for people that are looking for something to help them close off the 5-hole with a narrow butterfly. Let's just put it. That's the simplest terms to put it. That that's the case with these. So I think we can move on to the big comparison. Let's put it, the big breakup that that CCM and Lefebvre had. Who won the breakup? Who's got the better pad now? So let me bring in CCM Eflex 7 pad. So we are now, from the Eflex 4 was the last time True made or designed a pad for CCM. So since then, there's been the Eflex, obviously 5, 6, and now 7. For Lefebvre's side of it, they've come out with 12.1, 12.2, PX3, PX5. So 3 to 4 different pads have come out between these two lines. In the past, I would say True or Lefebvre, whatever you want to call it. I'll say True or Lefebvre, but you know what I mean. Easily wins that. However, if you saw my review of the Eflex 7 pads, I thought they were pretty damn good, actually. I think this is the best pad CCM has come out with since the split. So now a little bit of a competition now. It's not just the easy win for True and Lefebvre. However, I am going to say, just speaking in the most general sense, overall to If you want to just create the most generic middle of the road goalie, let's put it that way. Yeah, I would say the True PX5 probably wins out. It does everything at least well, if not excellent. Like there's really nothing it does bad. The Eflex 7, I would say there are certain goalies that I would say this probably fits you better. Now again, because how did I end the review on the PX5? About that 5-hole seal, right? This definitely has a better 5-hole seal just because the shape of the pad has a little more of an S curve towards the top. So that helps bring those thigh rises in, help seal that. Also, it is a little more of a flexible pad in general. Again, it's still not like super flexible, but I mean, this is the flex you're getting from the Eflex 7. And then with the True, you're not getting that flex. Okay, so if you do want still something that has some flex, if you are looking for something to close off the 5-hole specifically, yeah, Eflex 7 does beat out the PX5 in that respect. Sliding material, while I still thought this was good and very consistent. If I have to say a winner, PX5 sliding material wins out. Where the huge win is for the PX5 is the strapping. Again, you're gonna have to go to watch my videos on the Eflex 7 pad. I'm not gonna just go over everything again here, but I hated the strapping on this. It took me forever to get it to a point that it was usable and felt okay for me. And it's like a very specific thing I have to do with this to make it that way. Whereas PX5, first time I got on the ice, the strapping was fine. I really didn't have to fool around with it much at all. Very easy. You don't have to be super exact with that strapping. You can kind of be a little tighter, a little looser with it, and it's not going to change how the pad plays much at all. This is so finicky, and I just think the design of the strapping on this isn't very good. Specifically the QMS S3 strap, which is like their sort of professor strap. So yeah, and also at the stock level, this comes with a tight leg channel, which I also didn't like. So leg channel strapping for me, across the board, no matter what kind of goal you are, big win for the PX5 in that respect. But if you really do need that 5-hole help with that 5-hole seal or flex, technically, yeah, you would be, if you work hard enough and tinker with the strapping enough, you can get this usable, let's put it that way, but it's still never going to be as comfortable as that PX5. So it's just something, it just depends how bad do you want that better 5-hole seal, or if you really need that, feel like you need that more flex in the pad. And then if we're talking quality, look, not that I had a quality issue with the Eflex 7 pad, but it is an offshore made pad, and just looking at it, there are certain minor things you could tell that it's just like, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. It's just, you can't beat True for that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of the little differences here and there. I do think they're both pretty good pads. Well, I think the True is pretty excellent all around. It's just, stiffness wise is not the absolute optimal for me. And I really like the CCM too, and you can get rid of the whole strapping issues if you go custom. Really, the big takeaway for me lately with all these pads I've been trying is I can now able to use a lot of pads, whereas, I don't know, 5, 10, and definitely going back before, there were a lot of pads that I did not like at all. I would not be able to use. Like I would put them on and try and be like, oh God, no, this is terrible. I mean, just off the top of my head, and I'm talking stock pads, not, of course, if you go custom, you can make things more to your liking, but like stock pads that I could use, Hyperlight 2, now Flylight, CCM Eflex 7, True PX5, And even the Brian's, I didn't try the stock Optic 4. I have a custom Optic 4 that I've done videos on, but I had the stock Optic 3, and actually those weren't that bad either. So just the fact that now the industry has, so really what it was like when they first started trying to stiffen up pads and getting going that stiffer way, it was still a lot of the same design and strapping from older pads. They literally just made the pad stiffer. And for me, that didn't work. It felt super uncomfortable. I just didn't like that. Now that they're making it thinner, lighter, giving it more of a flexible boot, these are all things that make me tolerate the stiffness of the pad more. Ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, I'm always going to prefer going custom and really dialing something in for me with Vaughn or Brian's. But it's just kind of good to know that if for whatever reason I had to, there is actually stock options that I can use. So, and a lot of guys that watch my video, a lot of you guys watching or that message me or whatever, it's a lot of guys that are like me that do like, something a little more akin to older pads as far as being softer or whatever, just being usable to guys like me. And I'm happy to say that there are actually some options out there now that could work for you guys. So, ultimately, I'll give the win, this battle of pads, I'll give the win to True. But that being said, me personally, if I absolutely had to use one of these pads, I probably would still go with the Eflex 7. Again, because of the a little bit more flexibleness of it and the better 5-hole seal. But it's splitting hairs for me. But just in general, I feel like most people don't want those positives of the Eflex 7 or don't need it. Let's put it that way. So I do feel most people are going to go towards the PX5 pad and think that's a better pad. So if you are somebody watching this because you're deciding between these two pads, I would say you're probably better off going with the PX5 unless, again, there's very specific things about the Eflex 7 pad. So, come to the end of another video, and I'll see you in the next one.